Hello, everyone. Welcome back. What I want to do today is expand a little bit on the subject I've been covering about slavery. Okay, and particularly the question that I'm looking to answer, okay, or explore, is have modern humans been bred to be slaves? Okay, do we all have it in our genes to be slaves? And the reason why I say this is basically for human history is at least 5,000 years of slavery. Okay, and in the ancient world, who was a free person or who was a slave was a question of who won or lost the last war. Okay, so if you were on the winning side, and you conquered a group of people, right? Basically, as the winner, you had a right to massacre all of them. Okay, because the mindset of the ancient world was that if you lost the battle, you were hated by the gods. Like, you were damned. So you had no right to live. And basically they would typically kill all the losers except for those that they wanted to take as slaves. Okay, so that was the mindset of the ancient world. If anybody that showed, anybody that was taken as a slave, if they showed any sign of resistance, they would be killed off. Okay, so only the most compliant people would be allowed to live and might have the opportunity to breed. Okay, and then basically their compliant attitude would be then passed on to their children. Okay, and this went on for century after century after century. 5,000 years later. In the ancient world, it's estimated that only 30% of the population was slaves. Okay, and what we see is later on during medieval times, you got 95% of the population being slaves through serfdom. Okay, because if you were a serf, you were tied to the land, and the land baron could do whatever they wanted with you. You worked the land, and basically the land baron could work you to death if he wanted to. Okay. So basically, by medieval times, you got 95% of the population. They're serfs, they're obedient servants. We see very few peasant uprisings. So we see that the population has become very very subservient. So my conclusion is that basically we've all been bred to be slaves, and that's part of the reason why today. So many, you got 70% of the population that basically, love this idea of gun control. They love the idea of being subservient to an all-powerful government who's going to take care of them, okay? Who's going to provide them with what they need, as long as they do the government's bidding, okay? And we see this all over the world. I mean, that's basically what humanity has become, and this didn't happen over 1 or 2 centuries. This is over 5,000 years of recorded history that we know about, and probably went back a lot further than that. So basically, just an idea for you guys to think about. If you think about Darwin, okay, Darwin didn't say that his ideas. Of evolution basically ensured the survival of the strongest or the most intelligent. He said that his ideas of evolution, meant the survival of the most adaptable. Okay, and I'm wondering if being willing to submit to slavery is one of those traits that has allowed humanity to survive. Okay, because like I said, in the ancient world, if you lost battles, basically if you did not submit to slavery, you were killed off. And the way this worked is like originally, let's say you had the Egyptians, right? So they were the masters, they enslaved people. Well, at some point, the Egyptians were enslaved, were basically conquered by, let's say, the Greeks. Okay, so then that process started all over again. The people who were once masters are now slaves. The Greeks were then conquered by Romans. The Romans conquered by Germans. And it kind of goes on. So everybody has had a chance to be a slave at one point or another in history. And everybody's genetics who's alive today at some point have been filtered through slavery. Okay, so that's why I think that maybe that's the reason why we always, we got these aches and pains, and why, as we get older, maybe that's what reason why our tendons start to go. I don't think that we are the strongest. I think that we are the most subservient, and that's the reason why we're still alive today. Hey, I don't like the idea. I'm just kind of calling it as I see it. And a test that I have for this, right, that I've come up with is, ask yourself if you were inside a walled city that was about to be taken, okay, and you knew that, your wife and children, if they were, if the city was captured, right, if you knew that your wife and children would be captured and made slaves, would you elect to kill them or allow them to become slaves? Okay, and most of you will make the same decision that I would make. I would make and say, no, I'm not going to kill my wife and kids. I'll allow them to become slaves, and at some point, hopefully, I'll find an opportunity to free them. Okay, that is the typical answer that you will find from most people today, that they will allow their wife and kids to become slaves, so that at some future point they may have the opportunity to free them. Okay. Now, when you look at if you look at ancient literature, right, the warrior's mentality was the opposite. Okay, the warrior's mentality was, if the city's about to be taken, and if there's any possibility at all that my wife and kids might be enslaved, I'm going to kill them myself. Okay, absolutely no possibility. The ancient warrior would not accept any possibility that his children would become slaves. And I'm just kind of putting that out there for you to kind of compare yourself to the ancient warrior. Before our genetics were basically corrupted through centuries of enslavement. Okay, the ancient warrior's attitude is, if there's any possibility that my kids might become slaves, I will kill them myself. Okay, there's very few people that are alive today that would have that attitude. So just something for you guys to think about. I mean, I don't think there's any, right or wrong here. I mean, that's just what it is. I mean, that's who we are today. I mean, basically, we have all been bred to be slaves. Okay, that's the reason why we are so compliant. That's why we just pay our taxes, and we take our 2 weeks vacation and we're happy. That's our modern. That's the modern human, the modern man. So, and I think that's also the reason why 70% of the population, more or less, is in some favor of gun control. They don't want to take, they don't want to take responsibility for their own safety and their own freedom into their own hands. They want, their overlord, to take care of them and to protect them. So, some things for you guys to think about. I'll talk to you guys next time.